Welcome to Smarketing for Marketers. Today we have Brianna Feldot. She's a senior strategist specializing in digital marketing and website strategy. In this role, she works with notable companies like IPv4 Global and is responsible for conceptualizing, executing, and continually improving digital marketing campaigns to drive engagement across paid and owned media. Google Ads, analytics, and front-end website design is within her wheelhouse. So over to you, Brianna. Tell me more about your job role.
Yeah. So as a strategist, websites are kind of my home base. I've worked in all different areas of marketing, from social media to email marketing, website design and strategy, advertising, and the like. I like to think of the website as kind of the first impression that you have towards any of your customers and an outside audience. And so really understanding how you can make good UI and an IA on a website translate to all of the different marketing pieces that are connected is really important and a big part of what I do.
So that's a nice segue into my next question. In this post-pandemic world where a lot of the marketing budget has shifted towards digital marketing, what are some of the tactics you deploy to ensure the marketing dollars were well spent
Yeah.
over the past 2 years?
Yeah, the pandemic has been definitely a big positive for, I think, digital marketers. Still kind of tough in a different ways as we shift towards everything going digital. And I think the pandemic probably expedited what was ultimately going to happen, where everyone was going online anyway as technology progresses. I think that we needed to shift more quickly than maybe expected to everything being online, but still with that same website being your first impression and then the marketing being the funnel that gets them there. Mindset was really important. With IPv4.global specifically, we used to have a really big part of our budget allocated towards conferences. And so, in the pandemic, obviously, all of the in-person events were canceled. There was not really any conferences going on for the first year. Within the second year, people started to try and do online conferences, but it wasn't really as valuable or successful as, at least as we wanted to see it be. I think conferences are so valuable because they allow you face-to-face interactions and those one-to-one customer interactions. And especially for bigger companies that are selling bigger assets, a single customer can be really big for the business. So it's not always about quality. Not always about quantity, sorry. It's about quality. And so when you shift from that in-person setting to digital marketing, you want to make sure that you're still hitting the quality targets. And so we were really intentional about making sure that the people we were targeting were similar to the profiles of people that we were meeting at conferences. What that looked like is expanding our target audience to more than just a single audience. A lot of people think they know who their audience is. Even if they're looking at Google Analytics, you might think that just looking at the few stats that you know who your audience is. But, age demographics, gender demographics, where they live in the world is just one piece of the puzzle. What they're interested in, where they went to school, what their education background is, what their income is, are all factors that allow you to kind of break down a large single target audience into multiple personas. And when you do that, you're able to meet people where they're at. And that gives you more of the human element in your marketing, which is so important. Obviously, Google does a really good job of spending your dollars if you just kind of set it and forget it and let them go. But as a marketer, if you're able to bring the human element into the technology that Google and other places have built for you, then you're able to reach people more successfully.
That's so important. While you were talking, it made me think as well. A lot of times marketers forget that they're not marketing to Google, they're marketing to real humans, right? So that element needs to be, considered when you're thinking about your content strategy. It needs to be aligned with the intent behind the search. So really important. And I really love that information that you just shared about how website is your first impression and then marketing is the funnel where people from where you kind of get people from to your website. So very important. In terms of, you touched on Google Ads, which is a moving target for a lot of companies. Google in general, like next day the algorithm changes and it kind of like completely whitewash what you're currently doing in terms of your strategy. So what are some of the best practices you follow to improve the quality of traffic which you're getting from your paid ads initiative, because you're paying per click? So how do you kind of improve that balance, that quality versus quantity?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say this, sometimes the simplest answer is the best. Occam's razor. I would say like research and just being really on top of what's happening in the industry. Like you said, Google is a really powerful tool, and they are constantly looking to improve it. And so um, I feel like daily, weekly, quarterly, monthly, I see new things that Google is doing or looking to change. GA4 is a good example of that, where they're kind of looking to move all of their analytics to the GA4 structure by
Yep.
2023. And if marketers aren't on top of that and aware of that now, then you'll lose a lot of your historic data in the year when that shift happens. And so being really aware of what's going on within the Google platform and making sure that all of your strategies are adjusted to the future state is one thing that's really important. And then on top of that, just being aware of what's happening in the industry. Um, I try, daily just to look at what's happening in the news, especially with advertising, as well as like UX and strategy. The digital world just changes so quickly all the time. Being on top of what other people are doing, what your competitors are doing, potential new strategies and platforms that are coming out, and just testing things out as you go is really important, because then you can be on the front line of testing new opportunities to see if they'll work, and then implementing them before a lot of other people, to kind of stay ahead of the game.
That's really nice, because as marketers, I personally like have that FOMO, fear of missing out syndrome, where I like to test what other industries are doing. A lot of times I keep a close eye out on B2C trends, because B2C trends kind of, sometimes what B2C is doing, it kind of comes back to B2B at some point.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's really good. You talked about website design as part of, your jobs, day-to-day job role. Um, I see website design and SEO go hand in hand. Considering the recent Google algorithm talked about how they look at the content format as well as the content itself to kind of rank your site. When you design your clients' websites, what are some of the things you have implemented to ensure website is optimized for both user experience as well as search engines?
Yeah. Um, SEO is a really big part of it. I think in every kind of website process that I go through, there's always a big portion where we do an SEO audit and make sure that the structure of the website is actually sound, but that the content on it is also relevant to keywords and Google crawls. Um, Again, I would say like research and discovery is kind of like the most important part of any process. Every website is different and should be personalized to the client and the business that they're in. And so um, for every website process that I do, I start out with discovery and research. That means going through, looking at who their audience is, listening to what their business goals are, talking to important stakeholders, subject matter experts, um, going through their Google Analytics data, looking at their competitor set, and then bringing all of that together and defining really clear goals for what you want a new website to look like or a refreshed website to look like. And through that, figuring out specific objectives that fit and meet those goals. SEO being one of those almost always. And then understanding how the design that you pull through the UX are all connected. So I think a blog is a good example where SEO, UX, and UI are all really important. You want to make sure that the content on that blog is relevant to the user. So from user experience, um, almost always, you want your business goals to be present on your website, but you want the website to cater towards the users. If you can't meet a user's needs, they won't want to use your website. And that's just unfortunately how it is. So if you need a blog, or if it's relevant to users, then you should have a blog, because it's great for SEO as well, or a news section, or a resources, webinar section, whatever that might be, designing that in a way that makes sense for the user. So having filters, categories, making sure that it's searchable, and then having content that is relevant to the user, also relevant to search engines is really important. And so that's kind of a roundabout way of answering your question. I think they all do go hand in hand. And it's a bit of a process. I think that SEO should kind of slip in when you start to go through the design piece so that content and design are aligned.
Perfect. I do think that you hit the nail on the head, because like, with the website design, when you think about user experience, and SEO automatically gets taken care of, because when you're thinking about user experience, that's what Google wants from you, right? You want to make sure your website is aligned with your users, the target audience you're trying to kind of go after. In terms of Google Analytics, right? That's where most web marketers live nowadays. What are the key metrics that you look out for when you're looking at your website performance using
Yeah,
GA?
yeah. I know there's probably the good marketers answer of saying sessions and page views, and I do look at all of that. I think my number one metric is the bounce rate, and then I kind of work my way back from there. I think that as a marketer, I try to identify the problem areas and then solve for them. Um, in addition to, thinking ahead and creating a website that has no issues is obviously where you'd like to start. And then once you're kind of off the ground and rolling, you want to identify problem areas and fix them. And so bounce rate is really important. I typically look at it on like a page to page level in addition to a whole website level, so you can understand where people are dropping off in the flow of your website. If you're leading everyone to your homepage and everyone drops off on your homepage, then you have to fix something, whether it's within the navigation or the structure that you have on your homepage itself. If people are getting to a contact page or a checkout flow, but then they're dropping off before they check out, maybe it's too complicated and you should reevaluate your UX and information architecture there. And so starting by kind of looking at your bounce rate and then working your way back to figure out number of page sessions, which pages are the most popular, where your biggest drop off is, and then going from there.
Yeah. And I do think that, I want to touch on social proof, how important that is to your website, overall site navigation. How do you integrate social proof on your site when you're working with a client, whether it's testimonials, customer case studies? What, according to you, sells? Because, I think that users, that whole idea behind triggering conformity bias is really important to kind of get that response you're looking for from your ideal customer or visitor on your site.
Yeah. I think that social proof is extremely important. I think that it should be in some form on every website that is, marketing towards people, which is pretty much every website. I think again, it might be kind of a simple answer. For B2C, then your social proof should be people, and for B2B, your social proof should be businesses. And so that might mean for, sorry, my dog.
We have a
Um,
nice guest.
that might mean that for a uh, business B2B, that you want to have a logo strip. If you can, that's great. If you have notable businesses that you've worked with and you can include their logos, that's really key. If you can have testimonials from past businesses that you've worked with, even better. From the B2C side, you want to have client testimonials or customer testimonials. If you run a summer camp, you want to have engaging stories from past campers and also maybe their parents. You again kind of have to think about your audience and what they're looking for. So you want people to get excited. They work for a big company like Apple and they see that you've worked with IBM, they're going to be more encouraged than if they kind of just look at your website and it looks nice, it's helpful, but it's only one part of the process.
Yeah, they call that whole concept the Yelpification of B2B, right? Where people want to look at what other people are saying about that company or their solution they're offering. So, and there are other companies like Capterra, G2 now on the market that kind of, sells their services so that you can upgrade your profile on those platforms and get people to review your customer base.
Mm-hmm.
Have you deployed any of those tactics as part of your marketing strategy where you're using third-party peer review sites so that you can get the right customers to review your solutions?
Yeah, I've definitely done some of that more so with my B2C clients. I would say often is just kind of rolling in reviews from a couple different avenues and trying to get customer engagement and user generated content as well. I think that with some of my B2B clients, it's been a little bit more difficult just because people tend to be a little bit more guarded about sharing their logos
Yep.
um, out with the world. So, uh, I think that it is valuable to use those different tactics. I would say, being the person in front of them also is a big help, and by that I mean, uh, you can deploy as many different review sites as you want and try to lead people to different spaces where you can kind of gather content together and create social proof on your website. But a personal reach out can go really far away when you're working in the B2B space.
Yep, it's just a matter of asking your customers, right? Like, a short review survey would also work in this case. So, yeah,
Exactly.
good
Yeah.
point there. I also wanted to touch on, you talked about content, right? Content, churning out new, fresh piece of content bi-weekly or even on a monthly basis for B2B companies, quite hard, depending on the resources they have on hand. So tell me a little bit more about how you look at content marketing, and how do you kind of come up with new ideas, whether you look at keyword planner tool, to look at what people are searching for, or you just basically pull out content based on the buyer's journey, as they say, right, and align your content marketing strategy accordingly.
Yeah, content is so important to a website. New
It's always
content that
the missing link, right? It's always hard to bring new content or think about
yeah,
fresh content.
yeah. And I think I was actually just chatting with somebody about this recently. I think that people um, within businesses downplay the importance of content. Even marketers do that, and I think that we like to look at a really well designed website and think that it's good to go and be encouraged by the number of checkouts that we're seeing, and we forget to continue to make engaging content on our website. But it is key to SEO, and it is really important for continuing to engage an audience and bring people back. You want to be a source of education and truth, and so having that content is really important. And I think that people often downplay it because we think that it's easy. I work with a number of clients just in drafting content for their static pages that will push it off and think that it'll be really easy. And then they get to the end of the process and it's taking them, weeks or months to create things because they don't know what to say, or they are reworking one sentence 10 different times. Most of us, know how to write, think that we're pretty good at writing.
Yeah.
So we think that it's the easy piece of the puzzle, but it's really not. And so I would say to businesses and marketers, invest in a content person or invest in an agency that can help you with your content. It's really important. Um, and then from, a content rollout plan, I would say um, I typically do like an audit of the website itself and also of the analytics, and then use a couple different, like content planning tools. So understanding where people are on your website, keyword searches, what they're searching for, and how they might land on your website currently, and then other areas for opportunity. Doing an audit of your competitors is always really important, and the industry. And uh, if you are part of your audience for the company that you're working for, then think of yourself too. I think we often kind of skip over that, where you know more about your company as a marketer than pretty much anybody else, potentially even a CEO, because you just live and breathe the brand. And so, content that you find engaging, uh, or that people in your audience will find engaging, is a good place to start. But I think looking at the data and really understanding what topics you might be able to hit and what you're missing is important too.
You brought some really good points. You talked about competitor audit. That's really key, right? Like, people forget about what's out there. Doing a simple Google search will be able to easily tell you like what is there already in the Google verse, which covering the same topic, and how your competitor might be, what kind of content format they are leveraging, how do you kind of like differentiate your content, so it's easy to digest, because we live in this Snapchat 10-second video kind of world where people don't necessarily have the time to sit through a 1 hour long video. So how you can kind of shorten that content, that's key.
Mm-hmm.
This has been really insightful. My last question to you: what are some of the tools and technologies that you leverage to do marketing in your job?
Yeah, I feel like I have hundreds of tools that I use daily. So, and sometimes it's just hard to forget remember which ones. But the Google Suite obviously is one of like the biggest tools that I think every marketer should be familiar with. There's, a bunch of new analytics tools that are coming out, like Pendo and some others that have really cool features to them that might go beyond Google, but I would encourage marketers to still be familiar with what's happening on in Google, because I don't think it's going away. Even if there's an analytics tool that's more powerful, Google runs the Google search engine, and therefore
Google is the holy grail, right?
um, I Hotjar I think is a tool that a lot of marketers use. That's just like really I think useful on a website. It gives you kind of simple data that you can look at on a daily basis to just know how people are interacting. Talk a lot about the flow through your website, and Hotjar is a good place to be able to track that and see drop off and hotspots, and kind of show you opportunity areas. And then I think all of the other, SEMrush, Ahrefs, and all of those pieces are important to look at too. But
Yeah, there's no shortage of marketing tools out there for sure. But yeah, to your point, Google Analytics is still the boss when it comes to
yeah,
website traffic, and learning about what's the latest and greatest in terms of website. Thank you again for your time. This has been wonderful, and I hope to connect with you soon. Thank you for your time.
yeah. Thank you.
I'm going to.